Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Erin Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services, financial planner and wealth manager, and I'm joined this week and every single week by my dad, Jeff Lapidus, wealth manager and the retirement coach, and my husband, Robert Markham, life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy with several goals in mind. Dad, are you there? Or are you enjoying the lovely beach weather?
No, I'm here, babe.
All right. Well, we design strategies with several goals in mind, right?
Yes. First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to provide an income stream they can rely on so they can do all the things they want in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Erin, Rob, and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Again, good morning, kiddies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you enjoying the warm Florida weather this morning?
Absolutely. It's just been just had a beautiful week in Florida, and thank God the markets had a beautiful day on Friday because it was looking pretty ugly last week.
Yeah, it was a little choppy.
Yes, a little choppy.
A little choppy, absolutely. And just as a reminder, all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire, or they're already retired. And as Erin mentioned, our goal is to create a game plan for them so they can have a fun, financially successful, and hopefully less worrisome retirement. And there are lots of ways that you can keep in touch with us during the week.
That's right. Log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us button, request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. You can also ask us a question during the show, after the show, whenever it comes to mind, and we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as possible. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, a pop-up box will appear that says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and we do email it out every single month, about 6 a.m., first day of the month, and it just so happens that today is March 1st.
It is, and we have a new constructed newsletter, hot off the presses, and the first article there is funding the federal government.
What a timely topic.
I thought so myself. The IRS collected $4 trillion in net taxes in 2023.
So that's after refunds.
Correct. 50% of that total comes from individual income taxes, and 35% of it comes from payroll taxes. Business income taxes only make up about 10%. It's got a great infographic here showing how much money we bring in and where the sources of that revenue comes from. Very timely. Our next article, are you missing the bullseye with a target date fund? Target date funds offer a professionally managed mix of assets selected for a specific time horizon 2 out of every 3 401k participants have some level of assets in a target rate funds, but because these funds are usually the default option, a lot of people may have assets in the target date fund without even knowing it. Target date funds allocate assets based solely on the target date of the fund. It does not take into account the investor's risk tolerance, personal goals, asset levels, sources of income, or any other factor that make an investor unique. Target date funds may be appealing to novice investors with relatively low assets or those who prefer a simple set it and forget it option in their 401k. With the explosion of these target date funds and the fact that we see them in people's portfolios all the time, I thought this was a great article just to highlight maybe some gaps in information that people may be missing, but all in all, it's a great article if you have any gaps in your information regarding target date funds, given they're so prevalent. And our next one, the versatile Roth IRA. This article is an all-encompassing look at Roth IRAs, how they work, and how much you can contribute, and the rules governing withdrawals from these accounts. This piece highlights some of the not-so-familiar penalty-free circumstances in which you can access some of these funds, including college costs for yourself or a qualified family member, and a first home purchase up to $10,000 can be used for qualified expenses having to do with a first home purchase.
I think this is a great article because it also has a nice little infographic that shows the 2025 income limitations for Roth contributions, because many do not know that based on your income, you can be phased out of the ability to contribute to a Roth IRA. Roth 401ks don't have that limitation, but you have to have access through work in order to have a 401k that has a Roth component to it.
That is a nice feature if your employer provides such a feature.
Exactly.
And our last article, breaking down the numbers, the soaring national debt.
Another timely topic.
I thought so. As soon as I saw it up there, I'm like, oh, we got to use that one. This article explains and highlights the important differences between a deficit and a debt. And it's got some interesting bullet points in here. Some of them I've highlighted. In the past 50 years, the United States has run a deficit 46 times. The deficit in 2024 was $1.83 trillion. The highest deficit ever was during 2020 during the pandemic, and it was $3.13 trillion. As of September 2024, $1.13 trillion was spent just on servicing the $36 trillion national debt, which is 17% of our total budget. Very interesting article.
I think it gives us a nice backdrop to some of the conversations that we see playing out in the news. And that's our 2025 March newsletter. If you haven't seen it in your email yet, take a look. If you're not signed up to receive it by email, pop on our website, jblfinancial.com, and hit that sign up button, and we'll send it out to you every single month. Or while you're on the site, if you go to the newsletter section, Rob does keep the last 18 months archived, so you can not only look at our March newsletter, but going back 18 additional months.
Absolutely.
It's great, and that's wonderful. And again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you because, as we like to say, we have a lot on our minds every week, but what's more important is what's on yours. So give us a call today, 314-931-5877, or send us a text on the KTRS text line 84126. We'd love to hear from you.
We had a listener chomping at the bit to ask us a text question came before the intro even started.
Gotta love it. Motivated texters. And our texter writes, you answered my question about if I had to sign up for Medicare, and I don't have to when I don't have to, but when my wife turns 65, does she have to sign up? She is on my insurance through my workplace.
No, as long as your wife is also using your health insurance through your employer has more than 20 employees, then she is entitled to stay on your coverage, just as you're entitled to stay on your own coverage, no penalties. And if you decide to work past your wife's initial election period, which are the 7 months surrounding your wife's 65th birthday month, then she'll use the same process that you will when you apply for your Medicare benefits, which is when you lose coverage through work because you retire, then you will both apply for your Medicare benefits and also submit that request for employment information that shows that not only you were on the coverage from the day you turned 65 until the day you retired, but that your wife was also on the coverage from the day she turned 65 until you retired. And that will waive the penalty and give you both access to a special election to enroll in Medicare. You'll essentially apply separately for everything because nothing with Medicare is family-based. So unlike individual policies that can have all your entire family on them, your spouse, your dependents, Medicare benefits are always individualized. So you'll have two separate applications, and you'll also be able to select whatever you'd like, Medicare Advantage or Supplement, independent of one another. Or if you decide to choose the same thing, you'll still have two separate applications.
Awesome.
It's a terrific way to start the show. And again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And while we are waiting for your phone calls and your texts, I thought it would be nice for us to start off this week with a discussion of our rock stars of the week. Would you agree?
Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about John and Judy, and they are just one couple of the many that we have seen over the last several weeks and are scheduled to see several more over the next upcoming weeks. It seems like this tax season, everyone is ready to file early and get on to the more important topic, which is, can I retire this year?
Yes, very much motivated potential retirees coming into the office. Very exciting time.
It certainly is. And, we've had some very good positive movements for those that have been invested and stayed invested in the markets over the last couple of years. And, getting that second opinion, and sometimes maybe it's a first opinion, but a look by the coaches to say, hey, am I ready? Can I do it? Could I already have done it? What are my options to really get a little bit more comfortable with making that big decision before you make a move? It's easy to do, and you know how you do it. You just give our office a call, 314-863-0008, or go to our website, hit the Contact Us section, and send us a little note. We'll be very happy to get in touch with you in doing that. And it is fun to meet with new folks, to find out about their dreams, their goals, their expectations, and then put it up on the whiteboard. We like to play This Is Your Life. And this is something that we recently did with our new clients and friends, John and Judy. So without further ado, let's start talking about them. John is 64, and so is his wife, Judy. John was recently offered and he's eligible for a 9-month severance package, plus accumulated sick pay and vacation pay when he accepts, if he doesn't, he's considering this, the government early retirement option, as many government employees are. Judy happens to work as a part-time teacher, and she would love to retire as well if it's possible and it's prudent. And we do hear that a lot, right? Can I do it? Can we both do it? And can we do it prudently? Is the apple cart going to fall over, et cetera? So that's really the fun of this. Let's give you a little bit more background before we get into their numbers. Like many of our clients, they have paid off their primary mortgages. They don't have a significant amount of credit card debt, so they try to pay those off every month. They also don't have any student loan debt obligations for their 3 sons. And those kids have graduated. They're all off on their own, and they're living independently. So it sounds like, John and Judy, you got a good start to things, right?
Absolutely. So why don't we drill a little bit deeper into their numbers? We know that they have a monthly income goal of $7,000, and we know we have to scale that up for taxes, so that leaves us with an $8,400 a month obligation. John's Social Security at normal retirement age is going to be $3,100. Judy's spousal benefit at her normal retirement age is going to be half that, at $1,550. So that leaves us with a total between both of their Social Securities of $4,650. So that when we minus that off their monthly income goal, we know we're going to need another $3,750. So annualized, that's $45,000 a year.
So if John and Judy are waiting until they get to their normal retirement age, so they're 64 now, so that's a 3-year delay between today and when they begin their Social Security benefits, they'll need about $45,000 a year, and with a prudent rate of withdrawal, which we feel is 4%, they're going to need about $1.1 million in order to make that income work.
Great news. John and Judy have $1.75 million in their retirement accounts, 1.6 of which is in a 401k, $80,000 in a Roth. They also have an emergency fund of $60,000 in money market accounts and CDs.
So it sounds like our folks are basically on the edge of stardom, of rock stardom, which is great. But we know that they always have questions. And the first big one was, when is the best time for us each to consider electing our Social Security benefits? And we know the Social Security Administration, the recent laws that have changed that happened about 3 years ago, made things simpler, but it also made them a little more complicated. And in their particular situation, since Judy really had been a part-time worker for many years, her normal Social Security benefit was never going to be greater than half of her husband John's Social Security benefit. So therefore, for them to maximize that spousal option, that is her electing on her spouse's record, we know that two things had to happen. Number one is that John had to be collecting his Social Security, because you can't collect a spousal without that spouse collecting Social Security. And then number two is if they were really interested in maximizing their benefit, they would want to, at least from the spousal side, we want to make sure that we can get that spouse, Judy, as close to her normal retirement age as we can. So in their particular case, since they're both the same age, it makes it a little bit easier. So in this particular case, should they wait? Should they take it? This is really a judgment call, because we know, as Erin was mentioning, that when they are taking their Social Security benefits, and we like to look at this kind of in two ways, when all the faucets are turned on, they're still going to be short about $45,000 a year, and again, needing a certain amount of assets. We know they have more than enough assets at that point, withdrawing at 4% to make their numbers work, which is fine. But maybe they would feel more comfortable in not having 100% of their income dependent upon us, if you want to call it, drawing down money from their IRA accounts. So they might decide, hey, maybe what we'll do is we'll take our Social Security benefits, we'll take a lesser benefit, and therefore reduce, we like to think, the pressure on the valve in waiting, because we know that if they say we're not going to take any money until we're normal retirement age, 3 years, we're going to have to really fill that full gap.
You mean we're not going to take Social Security?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So that would be $8,400 a month times 12 months, or about $100,000 a year over a 3-year period. So we're going to be drawing down about $300,000 before they actually elect their Social Security benefits. In their particular case, we know that isn't an issue per se, because they have $1.75 million of retirement assets. We know that at the end, as Erin would talk about earlier with our 4% withdrawal rate, we only need 1.1. So we've got $600,000. They need to pull 3. Forget about it. They should really be okay in terms of doing that. So, but again, we find that that's frankly a little bit more of a feel-good election. They could even decide maybe to go one of the go the other way, which is John takes his, and maybe Judy waits. It's all good. That's really up to them. But the important part was being able to see this up on the board for them, I think gave them an opportunity to have a little bit more clarity.
Having options and putting it up on the whiteboard, and sounds like there are 3, maybe even 4 distinct paths you can take to get to the same place. You can delay it, you can take it, you can even stagger it, where you were saying where John takes it and maybe Judy delays. A lot of options to get to the place they want to go.
Well, that's the first big one. The second one I know Erin's going to talk a little bit about here also is health insurance. How are we going to deal with that for each of us? We know that at this point, Judy is being covered by John.
Right. And so if John does decide to retire, they'll both have the opportunity to elect COBRA benefits through John's former employer, which will easily bridge them to Medicare. COBRA rights last 18 months. John and Judy are already 64 years old, so we're really looking at a 12-month or less window, very specifically based on their respective dates of birth. And what would happen is, what we'll do is compare COBRA versus individual policies that they could access not only through the marketplace or what people have called in the past Obamacare, but we can go directly to carriers. We don't necessarily have to use the healthcare.gov website. So we can compare not only benefits, but what the cost of those benefits, so the premium would be, and make the decision what makes sense to bridge them from John's retirement until they are respectively ready to elect their Medicare benefits. Since they weren't born in the same month, what will end up happening is John was born first, so he'll come off of the COBRA or the individual policy that we elect and begin Medicare. And then when Judy turns 65, she'll be able to do the exact same thing. So the other nice thing is John and Judy are about the same age. But let's say, for example, that, John was already 65 and Judy wasn't. Each person that's enrolled for at least one day on a health insurance, an employer's health plan, will have access to their own individual COBRA rights, which means in that hypothetical, John would go from his employer's plan directly onto Medicare, but for Judy, we would have to use the same analysis that we just talked about, which is, does COBRA make sense or an individual policy to get her from John's retirement date to her 65th birthday? So there is a lot of flexibility, and which gives us the opportunity to, again, like Rob said, have a lot of choices for our clients and also have a lot of options in terms of expense. So are we more concerned about maintaining the same benefits? Because if John or Judy had spent money on their employer's plan, that will actually carry over to COBRA. So if you've already started paying towards your deductible and you retire mid-year or, close to the beginning of the year, like John and Judy are considering, then they would have the chance to take what they've already spent on the employer plan, and that will follow them onto their COBRA policy. So that would be part of our determination of, does COBRA make sense or an individual policy? If you're already near your deductible, it might make sense to pay the higher premium because you've already paid what you needed to the insurance company to start accessing the higher level of benefits that are being offered. So these are all important things to consider. But the one thing that I left out was John is going to have 9 months of his health insurance benefits covered. So we might be talking about a very protracted amount of time in this example because his severance package will cover health care benefits. Sometimes that is the case, and we do see many buyouts going on around the St. Louis and, the Missouri and Illinois area. So those are sometimes part of the package. But usually when individuals retire, there may be retiree benefits available that we can compare. But usually usually you're not seeing extended health insurance benefits after retirement.
That's a really good question. The other thing, the next question that we generally come out with is we query them usually during coaching sessions, usually in the first one, which is, do you have any planned projects that you would like to complete in the next 12 months that will require any significant large size or amount of capital? Because we have two things to look at here. Number one is planning for that money to come out of their asset base. And number two, planning on a tax-efficient way for it to come out.
And that could potentially play into if John might decide to elect Social Security earlier than waiting until 67. So it is important to plan some of these things out.
Yeah, in many cases, we know that for our clients, their last year of full-time or majority-time employment is usually their last highest income earning year. Once folks move to being retired, where they're living on Social Security benefits as well as income from their other assets, they generally fall into lower tax brackets. So the timing on making these distributions, the timing, the place on where are they coming from, can be very important because, as we know, Uncle Sam doesn't give the money back too easy. And so what we want to make sure is that we're as tax efficient and tax effective as we can. Go ahead, babe.
I was just going to say, before we continue with John and Judy's questions, we have Bill, who has been patiently waiting on the line.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
I enjoy your show. You touched on the Medicare thing at the opening, and my question is, I just started getting my Social Security the first of this year, in February actually, and I'm still working. I'll be 65 in April. I got my new Medicare card. I did not detach it. I have insurance up until the end of June. So it says if I do not elect to take Part B, to mail that card back, and they will not have be charging me for Part B. But my question is, sometime between then and the end of June, how do I get a hold of Medicare and say, hey, I'm ready to get on Medicare, and I don't end up getting penalized?
Right. Bill, could you remind me, when is your birthday? What's your birth month again?
April.
So you're turning 65 in April, and you are going to retire in June.
Yes, I have insurance through my employer till the end of June.
So you can return your card, and then what will happen is you will enroll using paper to get your Medicare Part B benefit. So because you have enrolled in Social Security, you're going to automatically receive Part A. So when you send your card back, they're going to send another card to you that will only have your Part A hospital benefit on it. And then when you're ready to enroll in Medicare, which would be a July 1st effective date, you'll apply using your You'll actually reapply using your initial election to have a July 1st effective date. My recommendation would be, if you don't want to go it on your own, that you give someone like Frankie, our Medicare coach, a call, 314-863-0008. What they can do is help you through the process of manually enrolling in Medicare. You'll still be using an initial election period because you're still in the 7-month window. It's just you don't want to start paying April, May, and June. You just want to start paying in July. And so you won't have a penalty assessed against you, because the nice thing is the way that Medicare election periods work is that initial election period is always, I call it supreme. It's at the very top. No matter what other elections you might be eligible for, you always have access to that 3 months prior to the month of your birth, the month that you turn 65, and 3 months after, to enroll in Medicare, no penalty, and you'll be able to choose whatever you'd like. But you'll use a paper application for your Medicare Part B, and don't be worried about that. The paper app is maybe a third of a page. It asks you for your name, your date of birth, where you were born, and your Social Security number, and then they'll be able to get you enrolled just as if it was April 1st when you were originally eligible.
Yeah, so I guess, so in summary, it sounds like it's called chill, Bill.
Well,
so
send the card back and then send the card back and re-enroll.
Exactly. So it seems like it's a Chinese fire drill, and it is, but it'll save you money because you really don't need your B until you actually really separate your service from your employer and leave that company plan.
Okay.
Great
now,
question.
Where do I get this paper at? Where can I get that?
So you can log on to Medicare.gov. They will have that available to you. Or, like I said, if you want to work with an individual that not only can help you with the actual Medicare enrollment, but choosing the plan to couple with your Medicare coverage, a supplement, or a Medicare Advantage plan, they should not only be able to walk you through the whole process, but we keep that paper application on file for situations just like yours, and also for situations just like our texters where they're looking for a special election period. They have more paperwork to fill out than you do. You'll still be able to use the same election period that got you your Medicare to begin with. So.
Okay, and now what time frame do I need to do this?
So you're going to send the card back now, and then you will want to reapply 2 months before July 1st. So that would be July is the 7th month. So in May, you're going to want to apply for your benefits to get a July 1st effective date.
Okay. Because I heard one thing, maybe you can clarify this. If you don't get this right, you could be penalized, and it's a lifetime penalty?
That is true. However, Bill, the nice thing here is you're kind of in a unique situation in that you are retiring, you're turning 65 and retiring within that 7-month window. So you are always going to have eligibility to enroll. You won't get locked out in any way. And that's usually what happens to people. If they miss an election period, then they have to wait. And that's where the penalty usually comes in. But you won't have any trouble.
Okay. Now, I was thinking is that penalty like a monetary penalty?
Yes, it's an annual. So what happens is for every year that you aren't enrolled in Part B that you should have been, there's a 10% penalty on the premium. So the premium this year is $185. So they would
be $18.50.
Right, so they would add $18.50 to that, and that would be a lifetime penalty. And then there's also a Medicare Part D, which is the prescription drug side of things.
1% for every month.
1% for every month you should have been enrolled and weren't, and the 1% is based off of the national average of an average Part D prescription drug plan. So that one can get a little pricey, but none of these things are anything you'll need to worry about because you've got plenty of time to get enrolled, return your card, and then get enrolled properly. So you only pay what you really owe.
Yeah, if I could interject something here because we have to go to our break. Bill, this is really one of those situations where being do-it-yourselfer is not helpful. You're going to end up spending a lot of time. There's a lot of rules that are involved here. You really should seek out a professional in this area, like we have at our office, or someone else. They'll walk you through to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But we do really appreciate your call, so thanks again.
And, we have quite a few additional texts that have come in between when we started talking about John and Judy and talked to Bill. So
we'll be back after our first break of the hour, and we're going to go over some of our questions for John and Judy and some of your texts. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement after these brief messages.
What's that sound?
Oh, that's just Jim, our screen repair guy. It's a little-known fact that the window screen repairman hibernates during the winter months when broken screens are scarce. Then, as spring brings warmer weather, he awakens to once again begin his work.
Wow. Really?
No, not really. Only wild animals hibernate. Jim is just taking a nap because he doesn't have many screens to fix.
Oh.
Hi, this is Frank Blair from Schnarr's Hardware, here to tell you this is a great time of year to avoid the spring rush and drop off your screens to get them ready for warmer weather.
Oh, yeah?
Then you can open up those windows at the first sign of balmy breezes, instead of waiting like your neighbors will have to.
Oh, so the screens keep the bugs out while the balmy breezes come in.
Bring those screens into Schnarr's today and avoid the rush.
Really?
Schnarr's Hardware, where we don't charge for the popcorn or the advice. We're open 7 days a week, so call us at 314-993-0910, or for location, hours, or to shop online, go to schnarrs.com.
This weekend, St. Louis. It's the only boat show in St. Louis this year. The St. Charles Boat Show. Thursday, February 27th through Sunday, March 2nd. With recreational boats, boating accessories, and big winter savings on all brands of new 2025 personal watercraft, tri-tunes, runabouts, high-performance boats, luxury yachts, and more. Register for a free $1,000 gas giveaway at the show. Get more info at stcharlesboatshow.com. The Lake of the Ozarks Marine Dealer St. Charles Boat Show. February 27th through March 2nd.
Hi, it's Jill Farmer for Premier Heating and Cooling. You know what? We were having some trouble with our furnace this winter. So I called our friends at Premier Heating and Cooling, and I got to tell you, it was such a good experience. The technician was so professional. He clearly understood exactly what he was doing more than anybody else we've ever had work on our furnace. And he really, truly helped explain it to us so we could understand as well. My husband and I were just really impressed with how everything was handled. And at the end of it, he gave us a detailed report of everything he'd done, so we have that information in case anything ever comes up again. I just really recommend our friends at Premier Heating and Cooling. They have 35 years of experience. They are the oldest and most experienced American Standard customer care dealer in St. Louis, and they have an excellent rating at the Better Business Bureau. If you give them a call and they come do work at your house, you'll see why so many people recommend Premier Heating and Cooling, just like I do. PremierHeatingCooling.net.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela. Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at Erin@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's 9:42 here on the Big 550 KTRS Talk Radio St. Louis. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
And we are willing, waiting, and wanting to answer your questions to 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the, we got some questions on it, KTRS text line.
Yeah, we're going to circle back to John and Judy in one moment, but we have a Medicare-related text Erin wanted to get to, and our texter writes, regarding your response to the husband who asked if his wife can continue on his health care or will she need to use Medicare when she turns 65, I know a lot of employers ask the question whether a spouse can get Medicare or health care elsewhere. Can an employer force you to use another option, or are they just asking the question but cannot force you to use the alternative? Thank you.
So they are asking the question, and they cannot, if there are more than 20 employees at your employer, they cannot force you off of the coverage. They can incentivize you off of the coverage, though. So if many people remember when the Affordable Care Act was first implemented, many employers who were covering spouses previously, maybe at no additional charge, or maybe just at the premium that was being assessed against the spouse. They can also add an additional caveat onto that, meaning if your spouse has access to employer coverage elsewhere or they are Medicare eligible, they'll say you can stay on our plan, but we're going to charge an extra $100 a month in order for you to keep this coverage because you have access elsewhere. That would only be a situation in which it's a spouse. If you are the employee, they cannot incentivize you off the coverage. They can't ask you to leave as long as your employer has more than 20 employees. So it is an option, and it is something to potentially consider, especially if your employer is not covering a portion of your spouse's coverage, you might take a look and say, does it make sense for the spouse to jump onto Medicare? That's a more detailed analysis that would not just include premium. It's going to include are the benefits that your employer is offering and what are the benefits that Medicare are offering and also those respective costs. It's also important to keep in mind that employer-based coverage, even if you are a spouse or a dependent, because it comes out of the employee's paycheck, it comes out before taxes are deducted. So that means you're not paying taxes on premium, whereas Medicare premiums are after tax. So there's a little bit of additional analysis that you'll want to take a look at if you are someone that's going to be making that decision. All right, and we still have a couple of additional text questions, or did you want to get back to John and Judy, Dad?
Let's keep the text line rolling.
All right.
And our next texter writes, are inherited IRAs or Roth or 401k accounts taxable by the person charity that receives it? Yes.
Well, not the charity, though, right?
Not the charity, but the person.
Yes. So if your IRA or 401k is a beneficiary to someone that's not a spouse, then that beneficiary will pay taxes. They have 10 years to liquidate the account, right?
Yes, they do. If you inherited a Roth IRA, you wouldn't pay any taxes, but you would still be under the gun to liquidate the account within 10 years.
If you have left or beneficiaried your IRA, 401k, or Roth account, or any other type of account to a charity, 501c3 charitable organizations are tax exempt. So that means they would not pay taxes on the gift that you have left to them.
Hope that clears everything up. And our next texter writes, do ERISA protections such as protection from civil judgments follow on retirement products you administer that are transfers from company plans? How does that apply to annuities? Thanks.
So ERISA only governs employer-based retirement plans, does not govern IRA accounts, which are individual retirement accounts, nor does it govern annuities that are held inside of IRA accounts. However, individual retirement accounts do also have their own protections. I believe that they are protected against civil judgments as well. Is that correct, Dad?
Ditto.
All right, good. So it's not ERISA, but they do have protections, and that is true of the IRA itself, not just, if you decide to work with us through LPL Financial, their IRAs are not different than if you went to any other company or bank that have IRAs or annuity products.
The only caveat to this is that an inherited IRA, or a beneficiary IRA, as it's also called, is not eligible for creditor protection because it isn't your IRA. It's actually your IRA that somebody else now has ownership of.
Right. It's undistributed assets of the individual you received the IRA from. Even if it's in your name now, you'll notice that if anyone has a beneficiary IRA or an inherited IRA, your name is on the account, but the individual who passed away that left you that account, their name stays on the account too.
Now, there is, if you are concerned about creditor protection for your inherited IRAs, you would need to seek out legal advice. And as a part of your, you would actually have to create a trust through your will for those specific beneficiaries, so that those beneficiary IRAs could be held in trust, and therefore they would then have some creditor protection.
Those are called beneficiary IRA trusts. Is that correct?
Yes, babe.
All right. So that's something that would have had to happen prior to receiving the beneficiary IRA.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we have one of our most favorite callers on the line.
Good morning, Judy.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are great. The sun is shining. It is not negative 25 degrees outside.
There's no snow or sleet.
This is true.
Right.
This is true. So we receive these letters from our healthcare system saying that they have joined a accountable care organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I found out by researching this that it doesn't apply for us since we chose a Medicare Advantage plan this year.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, my inquisitive mind got to thinking. And so I guess, okay, how do I say this? Okay, so we have a Medicare Advantage plan that is all-inclusive, so to speak. But we still have Medicare Part A and Part B, correct?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so how does that work?
So this is why Medicare Advantage plans are often fly under many different names. Sometimes they're called Medicare replacement, and people think that means that you no longer have A and B. But in reality, Medicare replacement means that they are replacing the payer. So when you had a supplement, what would happen is your physician or the provider would first send their bills off to the insurance company, but the insurance company bills Medicare first and says, you know, Judy had X, Y, and Z service. Medicare pays its portion, and then the supplement comes in and pays the balance based on the supplement that you selected. If you had a Plan F where it covers literally everything, you would pay nothing. If you just had that Part B deductible to deal with because you have a Plan G, then you'd be liable for that and then nothing for the rest of the year. The way that the payment system works now is that Medicare pays before anything happens. The day you and your husband enrolled in the Medicare Advantage plan, Medicare started sending your monthly Medicare premium to that insurance carrier. They also sent them what's called a capitation fee for both yourself and your husband to basically pay for Judy and her husband's care for the year. So when your provider bills your insurance company now, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays with the insurance company, and they pay the portion of the claim that they're responsible for based on your insurance coverage, and then you pay what you're responsible for. So, for example, you know, when you go in for blood work and you're not charged anything, the insurance company still has to pay the provider for having provided that for you, but you're not liable for anything. If there is a copay involved, you pay your portion, the insurance company will then pay the provider. So that's where the difference really comes in as to how it's really just based on who's paying who, how, and when. Now, accountable care organizations are similar, for example, Essence is what's called an accountable care organization. They have specific guidelines that they have to meet in order to maintain that status. Their primary care physicians have to spend a certain amount of time with each patient, and also they're limited in the number of patients that they can have. What you have is not an accountable care just because I happen to know what policy you elected. You have what's called a point of service, which just means that your providers are not restricted to certain limitations that accountable care organizations create. And for some people, they believe that means you get an elevated level of care because you get more time with the physician and they have more requirements versus what you have now where they don't have the same requirements. So it can be 6 1, half dozen of the other, but it's just important that you feel that your providers are still giving you the level of care that you have always been accustomed to. It's less important as to what it's called.
Okay. Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
You explained that very well. So it's just the way that things are paid out now.
That is exactly right. And the good thing is you don't have to think about that because I really love how Frank describes the Medicare Advantage plan, the no surprises plan. You got the booklet that says, you know, this is what you pay when you do X, this is what you pay when you do Y. Those are always true. You don't have to worry about what goes on in the background.
Right. Yes. Well, we hope to see you guys across the river now that it's getting warm.
It's almost blueberry time when the weather goes from negative 25 to positive 178.
We've got to start stomping around all of lower Illinois.
It was warm out there.
A lot more than just blueberries, girlie.
That is true. That is true. I was treated to a charcuterie board before they were even popular, a specially made one.
On a paper plate?
You know what? It was served to while watching I think we watched Jeopardy. I mean, I don't know what gets better than that. So
yes.
I
Hey.
would never complain. Thank you for calling, Judy.
I don't know if you can beat that. All right. Thank you.
We'll talk to you later, and I think it's time for break number 2.
Actually, we are gonna push it to 56:50, and then not have another break. Let everyone keep listening to us for another minute or two.
Yes, ma'am. Sounds
Could we
good
circle
to me.
back to John and Judy?
I think we've got time to answer one more of John and Judy's questions. Not our favorite caller, John and Judy, but the newly retired John and Judy.
So as in all things, we always have questions for them, and in addition to any planned projects that they plan to require capital for in the next 12 months, we also want to know if they would be interested in a personal pension income benefit to supplement their Social Security income benefits.
Yeah, and it isn't unusual for us to query folks about this because in their particular case, they may be interested in creating an additional stream of income that they can count on that may not necessarily be linked into market growth. And if that was something that would help improve or enhance their peace of mind, usually we then go to a question about, okay, how much of that income should we be replacing? Should we be looking at 50%, 25%, 75%, et cetera? And then what we can then do is algebraically work back and create a solution for them that will add them an additional income stream for as long as they're alive. And so that's a good option.
It's a great option. And really, I think what that does is it just provides them with a better peace of mind to the security and consistency of the income that they need to make their daily lives work.
Absolutely. If said I had like a $3,600 a month deficit and I want to lock down, say, half of that, I mean, being able to customizably put together that piece is of great benefit.
You know what else is of great benefit?
Waiting for our second segment, dealing specifically with Medicare.
That's right, and all you have to do is wait through the break, and we have Frankie Ellis, our Medicare coach, who's going to be back in the house today. So don't touch
that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these brief messages.
A message from the master. If you are looking for that one-of-a-kind gift this year, come on in to Newsletter's Fine Jewelers. Let Richard draw your future present for somebody you love. This special engraving lasts a lifetime. At the corner of Big Ben and Doherty Ferry or at wowdiamonds.com.
Cold. So bring the heat with Dogtown Pizza. Warm up these winter months with one of 13 different flavors, from the new SOB, sausage, onion, bacon, to a 4-meat or veggie. Or how about the all-star this time of year? I'm looking at you, hot chicken. Heat up those ovens and warm up those bones with a hot Dogtown Pizza. And tell Jack Frost to take a hike. These cold winter months are upon us, so take a trek to Dogtown. Dogtown Pizza, of course.
Mom, what do you always say?
There's nothing sadder than jewelry that sits in a drawer.
That's why we are proud to offer jewelry repair on site at Newsletter's Fine Jewelry. We know that your jewelry is important to you, and we take that part of our job very seriously. Visit us at Doherty Ferry and Big Bend or learn more at wowdiamonds.com.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Lang. Join me every Sunday afternoon from 2 to 3 on the Big 550 for Animal Talk, where I talk about everything regarding dogs, cats, and other domestic animals. Topics include nutrition, training, medical checkups, special guests show up now and then, and of course, I'll answer your questions. So join me every Sunday afternoon from 2 to 3 for Animal Talk on the Big 550 KTRS, the Animal Talk of St. Louis.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
The Heidi Glaus Show with Josh Gilbert and Bob Ramsey on KTRS.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came.
They know your name, and they know what you want on the drive home. The latest news, traffic, weather, sports, and of course, lots of laughs.
You want to go where everybody knows your name.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Welcome back, everyone, to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. As always, we like to kick off this hour with our Smart Choices About Your Healthcare segment. And this week, just like last week, we're graced with Frankie's presence, our Medicare coach. He had so many Medicare questions this morning, we roused him out of bed, dragged him in.
Love that. Love that. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. Thanks for being here this morning. You've got a great topic to talk about. Sounds like Brenda is enjoying some vacation time, huh?
That's right. That's right. So I talked to this lady named Brenda, who actually has a sister named Bridget, who Brenda actually shared Bridget's story with me while we were in our meeting, and she had lots and lots of questions because of some of the traveling that they do internationally.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So at this point in time, Brenda was not on Medicare, but her sister Bridget was. So Brenda and her sister and a couple of girlfriends, they had this big trip planned out to go on a European cruise. They were going to start in Italy and do a 10-day cruise through Italy, France, and Spain. So
that sounds luxurious.
Sounds like a wonderful trip already.
Right.
Exactly. So Brenda's older sister, Bridget, she was the only one that had Medicare at the time when they traveled. So Bridget had been on Medicare for a few years now, is what Brenda was telling me. And so Bridget was really familiar with kind of how the Medicare plans worked. Now, she did have a Medicare Advantage plan, but she didn't know how the plan worked internationally. She knew how her plan worked domestically, especially locally here in the St. Louis area where she's had some experience using her plan, but she didn't necessarily know how to use her plan internationally.
And this is a great question because we just see a really significant increase in our clients taking international travel, maybe not even all the way to Europe, but lots of travel to Mexico, maybe up to Canada. And so it's important to know how your benefits work, not only domestically, but if you decide to enjoy your retirement internationally somewhere.
That's right. That's right. Now, Brenda, since she wasn't on Medicare at the time, she did have some questions about her employer's coverage and how her employer's coverage could help her internationally. And I just let her know she needed to verify or double verify with her HR department or benefits coordinator, whoever handles her insurance at her company, that she does have insurance internationally anytime for any emergency whatsoever.
Right, and usually most private policies, so that's pre-Medicare, do have emergency coverage internationally, which means if something happens and you are admitted to the hospital through the ER, you're still going to have coverage. It's just that, while you're in Italy, you can't decide, maybe not the Tower of Pisa today. I'll go see a dermatologist. So no voluntary care usually, but emergent care is usually covered. But that is a great point. We are not experts on your group health insurance policy. So although Frank could do a good job of looking through it, giving you some ideas, it is important to verify those facts too.
That's right. And now for Bridget, since she was on Medicare and she was on Medicare Advantage particularly, we know how those plans work internationally. We know if you have an emergency, you are able to use your plan internationally just like you are here at home, and you're going to be covered, and the insurance company is going to consider you in network because emergency services is carried everywhere with you.
Excellent.
So she knew, well, after we talked, Bridget and Brenda both felt a little bit more comfortable, but I do always suggest for people, especially if you're going to be going for, a week or 2 weeks or even longer, to get some sort of form of traveler's insurance.
Sure.
Now, oftentimes you can find traveler's insurance and add it as an addition to your already booked trip. So if you're booking like a cruise or something, it'll have some sort of way for you to add that travel insurance to the package directly.
So directly while you're signing up, either through the company or even through the travel agency, they'll give you an option to say, I'd like to add some travel coverage. And this is not travel protection. This is not insuring against if you get sick before you go on the trip. This is, I'm on the trip, something's happened, insurance abroad, essentially.
That is correct. And that would be your primary. So if you get a traveler's insurance, and let's just say a traveler's insurance does not come already packaged with the plan, how else would you be able to maintain a plan? Well, you can shop the market just like you can for any other sort of insurance plan. So there is a good website out there that lets you do cost comparison with these travel plans. It's called travelers.com. So if you get on that website, you'll just be able to type in, where you're going, how long you're going to be going, and then it'll shoot you back some quotes from several different insurance companies.
Okay.
So that's one way to get it. Or if you don't want to have the travel insurance, that's absolutely fine. It is optional. It's nothing mandatory. So you can rely on your plan to cover you in a case of an emergency. So you definitely need to make sure if you use it internationally that it is a true emergency so you are protected.
So why do you recommend adding that travel insurance?
I like for people to have all layers of protection whenever they travel, especially if you're going to be going for a long time. I think that it is important for people to be covered to the maximum potential possible.
Sure.
So no holes in any area. If you're going to be going for 2 weeks, you don't know if you're going to fall and break a hip and have a true emergency, or you don't know if you're just going to feel a little sick and maybe just want to go into like a walk-in clinic or something. So just to have that extra layer of protection, I think it's important for folks to have that traveler's insurance. But again, nothing mandatory.
And in general, do you have an idea of how much, what it costs to add insurance, or does that vary based on where you're going, how long you're going, your age, all those things?
So what I kind of see from our clients is around $400 to $500 in addition, and that would probably be just for 1 month.
Okay.
I know most people probably aren't traveling for, a full month. So let's just say you travel for 2 weeks. You're still going to pay that full price, $400 or $500, and you're just going to have 2 weeks worth of coverage because you're going to come right back home afterwards.
Maybe this is a reason to extend your trips.
Yeah.
Maximize your health.
That's right.
Maximize your international coverage, everyone.
That's right.
So they usually sell it in 1 month increments, essentially.
That's correct.
Got ya. Okay.
So I want to talk about a little bit how these Medicare plans specifically cover travel.
Okay.
And to start with that, I want to talk about the Medigap plans, the Medigap side of things, because we know there's two ways that you can set up your Medicare. You have a traditional style and you have a Medicare Advantage style. So on the traditional style, you have these Medigap plans. These plans are really good for international travel. I do know we do have some clients that have chosen Medigap plans because of their international travel. I remember in particular, we have a client whose son works over in Germany. And so his mom and dad, they spend about 3 months out of the year in Germany. They're retired, of course, and so they spend a lot of time over there. So their Medigap plan, whenever they are over in Germany, if they use their plan, you would be covered at 80%. So remember, that's going to be like the Plan G or the Plan N. Before 2020, a lot of folks had that Plan F. So they would be covered at 80% health coverage. And then they would pay 20% of whatever price is remaining.
Okay.
So that's the Medigap plans. Nice and simple. 80-20 split. Insurance covers 80, you pay 20.
But there's no top-end protection on that, right?
That is correct. There is no top-end protection on that.
So that would be a great reason as to why you might want to add travel protection or travel insurance on, because that will help you with the 20%.
That's right. That's right. Because if you got a bill for $100,000 and your portion is $20,000, you may want to have that extra layer of protection on there to where you're not paying $20,000.
$400 about for that, and that's an estimate, everyone. $400 for insurance for a month versus a $20,000 claim potentially.
That's right.
Okay, fair enough.
So before we dive back into how these Medicare plans work, in particular, let's start talking about the Medicare Advantage plans, the plan that Bridget had. The reason that they were prompted to come to the office and have this discussion with me was because Bridget had kind of been feeling a little bit sick leading up into the trip.
Okay.
So they kind of had like a foreshadow moment of, oh, hey, Frank, what if we actually have to use our plan?
So it didn't really, it seemed like it could be a looming issue
That's
this
right.
time around. Okay.
So, lo and behold, that's exactly what happens.
Oh, no.
So, after their 10-day cruise, so they made it through the 10-day cruise, no problem. They did not have to use their plan on the cruise ship, which you can absolutely do as well. If you are on a cruise, you can use your Medicare Advantage plan or Medicare plan on that cruise ship because they do have services there for you.
Oh, okay. That's great to know because although I was not Medicare eligible, I fell on a cruise once.
Oh, no.
Right?
Oh,
and,
no.
Luckily I didn't break anything, but when I went down to the doctor that's like down in the gully, wherever they galley down there in the basement of the ship, they were like, well, we could x-ray it for like $1 million,
Oh, no.
but we can't do anything for you. So I was like, do you have a bag of ice? So I guess my Medicare Advantage plan would have come in handy. They would have covered that x-ray for me on the ship. Okay.
Oh, no. I got to hear more about that story later. So Brenda and Bridget, everything went fine on the first 10 days. They get back to Italy. They plan on doing some traveling, want to travel the countryside of Italy. And Bridget actually ends up getting sick.
Oh, no.
I actually know all too well about this. She had some stomach issues, and that caused her to actually go to the emergency room because she couldn't hold any food down. She was vomiting, and it's not like, you know, she had anything bad on the cruise or anything. This was just she had already been feeling like this prior to the trip, and then here we go again now that she's on the trip.
Okay.
So what she ended up doing, because in Italy, there is no sort of like urgent care. There are some sort of walk-in clinics. They're more privatized. So what she ended up doing was she ended up going to the emergency room, and she had some services done at the emergency room to help with her stomach issues. And she got a bill in the mail about 2 weeks later from Aetna. And
well, that's faster than they would bill if it was local.
At some point, yeah. Sometimes you are absolutely right. Because I've had people wait for like 6 months for a bill before here. But I guess in Italy, they're a little bit faster with it, with billing the insurance company. And I guess Aetna just sent her the bill right away for $140. So when they got the bill, of course, they called me and they asked, hey, after, we had already talked about this, hey, we got this bill for $140. Does this match with our plan? Or are we overbilled? Are we underbilled? Did we get a good deal? And so I let them know this is exactly how the plan is supposed to work.
Okay.
You have an emergency service under the Medicare Advantage plan, and you make a copay. And that copay, even though you had something done internationally, it doesn't matter. That copay is still going to go towards that max out of pocket.
Okay, so the $140 represented the ER copay and maybe something else? Or was that the ER copay alone?
I think that was the ER copay. She may have gotten a couple of antibiotics or something. Or I think in her instance, she did not get antibiotics. I think they sent her home and she got like some over-the-counter meds.
Gotcha.
So that should have been just an emergency $140.
Okay, and like you said, you got the bill. It was billed correctly, and that $140, even though it was international, that went towards Bridget's maximum out of pocket with her Aetna policy.
That is correct.
All right.
Now, emergency services and urgent cares are covered nationwide. So now we're switching back to domestically. Okay. So anytime you're doing any traveling within the states, you're always covered for emergency and any urgent care. Now, you're going to make a copay inside of your Medicare Advantage plans. Okay. That's exactly how these plans work. So you pay nothing up front to the insurance company. You use your plan. So you have some sort of health service done. You're going to make a copay. So the emergency services copay for the plans here in the St. Louis market, I've seen anywhere from around $120 up to $140. So Bridget paid the max in our market, $140 copay, but some plans it's going to be $130, some plans it's going to be $120. And it's going to be a range between those two.
And I actually said this last hour, which is I love how you describe the Medicare Advantage plans as no surprises. Well, this is true international.
Well, yeah, because you taught me.
That's funny. I don't remember. Okay. All right, then. Well, still love it.
Pat yourself on the back, yeah.
In the most humble way possible, okay. So that means all the outline benefits in their plans that they look at domestically apply internationally. Obviously not your copays to the specialist because you're not doing things voluntarily out of the country, but if you go to the ER, but let's say Bridget had to be admitted, then they'd waive the ER copay, and then you'd have other charges based on hospital admittance. But that would be true if you went to a hospital here in St. Louis or Illinois, or if you went while you were in Italy like Bridget had to.
That's right. That's
Got
right.
it.
So the basis is these plans are going to protect you, whether you're in the country or whether you're out of the country doing some traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have those extra layers of protection within these plans because these plans have gotten so large now to where, they even have the national networks now.
Right.
I don't know if they had that maybe 10 years ago or so.
That is very new. The
Yeah.
national network on the Medicare Advantage side, that is definitely new. Obviously, I like to describe it. Many people remember the Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance card where it had a little suitcase on it and it had PPO inside the suitcase. And the idea was you could take it anywhere because you had the Blue Cross National Network to access. Medicare Advantage plans kind of took a page out of that book, and our national plans locally give you national network access.
Very good. Very good. And that's very important because as people retire and they get older, they are doing traveling.
Yeah.
They are moving to other places in the country or temporarily moving to other places and doing international travel. So it's important to know that whenever you do have one of these Medicare Advantage plans, you are able to use that in other markets, not just the St. Louis market. So another thing that I wanted to kind of point out was we talked about how the Medigap plans covered the domestic travel. You're going to be covered at 80%. Your plan is going to pick up to 20%. You're going to have a $257 deductible. So you have to meet that deductible first under that plan G or N. Now, with the Advantage plans, you do have several options, okay? Because we know the Medigap plans are all just like one big plan. Like your plan G is a non-network plan.
Right.
Meaning you can go to any doctor or hospital that you want to that accepts Medicare. The Advantage plans are going to be more your PPO options, your HMO, POS options. So you're going to be tied to more of a network. Now, although you do have these networks in your Advantage plans, you still have all these extra layers of protection under the PPO and the HMO POS plans that are going to carry with you all over the country and also internationally.
So just because you have and I'm sure you hear this all the time, Frank, which is, I hear that I can only use my Medicare Advantage plan locally. And that is not true. It's not true if you have an HMO style plan, if you have an HMO POS style plan, or if you have the PPO style plan.
That is correct. So the difference between all three of those that you just listed, your PPO, these are known as your preferred provider preferred provider organizations. These plans allow you to go in and out of network to any market, domestically, internationally. You can go to any market under emergency internationally for the PPO. But those are the ones that allow you to go in and out of network. Your HMO, health maintenance organizations, these are a little bit more confined. These are the ones where your doctors have to be in the network unless you're utilizing that urgent care system, the emergency care system, or if you're international and you're using that emergency care system as well. So that's going to carry with you no matter what.
And a lot of people have that question because many of the HMO plans have now added that POS point of service to them. What is the difference between the HMO and the HMO POS?
So the POS, the point of service, this just gives you very limited out-of-network access. So you are able to see some sort of out-of-network doctors on these plans with the plan's approval.
So that means it's not as easy as it sounds. So if you're using an HMO POS plan and your physician recommends that you need an out-of-network physician, if you're working with Frank, give him a call first, or, give the plan a call if you have made your own selection to make sure that you can access that physician. I'm sure there's probably a referral system that's required or a special authorization in order to see an out-of-network physician.
That is correct.
So you do have some access, but, it's not based on your choice. It's based on the insurance company and the plan that you picked.
That's correct. And I think it's important for folks to know most of these HMO plans do not require a referral unless it's in that particular instance to where you want to use an outside of network doctor. Then you may have to get a referral for that. But if you're staying in network, especially on the Aetna and United plan, I think Anthem as well, if you have an Anthem HMO, and then if you have the Humana HMO, I think all four of those insurance companies, they no longer require those referrals.
Right, so you're still inside of the network, but you don't have to ask the physician to make a referral for you to see your specialists. So that's been a great benefit with the HMO, the transition of the HMO plans.
Oh, big time. I think they stopped doing referrals about 3 years ago now at this point. And you just saw a complete shift from folks that were on the PPO going to the HMOs now because of all of the better benefits that the HMO provides in the plan.
And how great is it that the insurance companies actually maintained those HMO benefits, even though they saw a huge influx? We haven't really seen maximum out-of-pockets go up substantially over that time period. Haven't seen major benefit changes when we're looking at the medical and the prescription across the board with those HMOs. So now it's almost as if they added some extra benefits or alleviated some pain points for people, but maintained those benefits.
That's right.
That's really great.
Continue to improve.
That's awesome. So I guess my last question would be, and I just want to go back to the international travel very quickly, because you've mentioned a couple of times that there's ER coverage, so emergency coverage internationally, but like in Italy, they don't really have an urgent care system. Would you recommend people always access the ER versus a walk-in clinic or anything like that to ensure that they're using that they're going to have their benefits or their treatments covered?
If someone only has the Advantage plan, so if they don't take the traveler's insurance, then I would recommend using the emergency services in a country like Italy, because again, there's got to be more privatized. If they were like in England or somewhere where England, you do have these urgent care clinics. I forget what they call them. They're not necessarily called urgent care. National Health System, I believe, is what it's called. And you can walk into a clinic and it works just like an urgent care. But a country like Italy, that's going to be a little bit more privatized. If you don't have that traveler's insurance, then I would say, yes, utilize that emergency service for your Advantage plan.
So it sounds like not only does the travel insurance provide additional protection, but it gives you some more options, and also it means you don't have to think very much when you're making your selection, which is the closest thing that has that has a medical symbol on it that you can walk into, and that travel insurance is going to help protect you. Whereas, if you are in a place like Italy with just Medicare Advantage, you're going to have to be a little more discerning.
That's right. And it's always important to check to see if whatever country you're traveling to, what kind of health system, what kind of health system they have over in their countries, whether they have private care or are they going to be more like urgent care like we have here. So it's always important to do that research before you go.
Awesome. Or you can have Frank help you with that research by giving us a call, 314-863-0008, or you can send Frank an email, franklin@jblfinancial.com, and he can assist not only with helping you make your Medicare selections, but talking about how your Medicare is going to work with all of your retirement plans.
Very good. Very good. Look forward to hearing from folks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for coming in this morning. We truly appreciate it. We will see you again soon. And for everyone, we will take our first break of the hour. If you have any questions, our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877, or send us a text, 84126 on the text line.
Hi, it's KTRS Sports Director Brendan Weesey. Join Bob Ramsey and me each and every week for the Rawlings Redbird Report as we get you ready for the upcoming 2025 baseball season.
Play ball!
And not only can you hear us on the Big 550, but watch us on our KTRS TV YouTube channel. It's all a presentation of Rawlings and the Rawlings Experience.
I'm talking baseball.
It's the Rawlings Redbird Report.
Baseball in St. Louis.
On the Big 550.
This weekend, St. Louis. It's the only boat show in St. Louis this year. The St. Charles Boat Show, February 27th through Sunday, March 2nd, with recreational boats, boating accessories, and big winter savings on all brands of new 2025 personal watercraft, tri-tunes, runabouts, high-performance boats, luxury yachts, and more. Register for a free $1,000 gas giveaway at the show. Get more info at stcharlesboatshow.com. The link to the Ozarks Marine Dealer St. Charles Boat Show, February 27th through March 2nd.
Ott Law works tirelessly to advocate for the rights of the people they serve in the areas of personal injury, trust and estate law, labor and employment law, and business law. Ott Law represents clients from all walks of life and uses cutting-edge technology, litigation savvy, and a dedicated strategic vision to get winning results on tough cases. And Ott Law proudly supports the Backstoppers. Call Ott Law at 314-293-3756. Online at ott.law.
The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely on advertisements.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talking Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's 10:31 here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. We're here to answer your questions and calls, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. You know, babe, I was listening to the segment that you had with Frank, and, you know, it's always good. But I was just, if you remember, I took a cruise last year, and we were in Italy, and all I was thinking was, Mamma Mia, right? I didn't get sick because they don't have they have urgent care, but you're right.
I am.
It is what it is, right? So yeah, you do need to be careful, and it really does make sense to check what's going on when you're outside the good U.S. of A.
It's nice to know with those Medicare Advantage plans, you do have a baseline for emergency services at the very least, so you won't end up without a chair if the music should stop. God forbid you're on vacation and you fall into that eventuality of needing some emergency care.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, our clients don't have to worry about that because when you're retired, it's called holiday. There are no more vacations because you're not at work. So it's all good. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from text line. We've got about 36 minutes left. What's going on? Do we have anybody on the text line at this point?
The only text we received was a comment that one of our listeners received an insurance bill, or probably a payment bill from a year and a half ago. And at first I giggled about it a little bit because, you know, that's not shocking. But secondly, does that fall outside of the timely billing rules since it's over a year and a half?
I would think it definitely does.
So if you, Texter, if you're still listening, you haven't paid that bill yet, you can fight it if you have the energy. I guess it depends on how large the bill is.
Or if you have Frank.
That's true. Or if you have Frank, he will fight it for you because the insurance company, although we were joking a bit and they can be delayed in their billing, they do have requirements in that it is timely, and a year and a half usually exceeds the timeliness.
Yeah, I don't even think 12 months is a timely. So it sounds like this is really off the tracks, right?
Absolutely.
Which is good. So I was going to say, while we're waiting for your texts at 84126 and your phone calls at 314-931-5877, we've had some inquiries this week, not unusual. from folks. Some retired, those aren't retired during coaching sessions, and a couple we'd like to share with you. One of them is George. He's 64 years old. Seems like everybody's 64 these days. I'm not anymore, but that's okay. He's divorced, and he's ready to retire. We had several coaching sessions with him over the last 3 years, preparing for us to help him with his anticipated retirement. And truthfully, the nice thing is that he was emotionally getting prepared over this time period to go, okay, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer. Rob, tell us a little bit about his situation.
George has accumulated $1.2 million in his 401k, woohoo, and $40,000 in a Roth IRA. He also has a personal savings of $26,000 at his local credit union. His options when he terminates his employment, what are they? Well, he's got three options. He can leave the money in the current plans with the current plan sponsors.
And that's because he's got more than $5,000 in there, right?
Correct. He can take a lump sum distribution. Now, there's going to be a 20% automatic withholding, and it's subject to the 60-day rule, meaning you have 60 days to deposit those funds into the IRA.
Or you have to pay 20% in taxes plus potentially much more depending upon that lump sum.
Potentially much more.
Since, it's got $1.2 million, so that's going to be way more than 20%.
Or his last option, he can execute a direct transfer from his current 401k plan sponsors to a new self-directed IRA. It's a rollover.
And I always like to make the distinction here. So when you do a direct transfer of assets from your retirement plan at work, so your 401k to an IRA, many 401k plans still require that a paper check be mailed to the participant's address of record. That does not mean that you haven't executed a direct transfer. What it means is just that this is part of that process. So in many cases, when you request, I'd like to move my funds from one trustee to another, from my 401k to my self-directed IRA, the plan has a requirement to mail a check. That check is going to be made out to your IRA's custodian and yourself. So in George's case, let's say that since he's been working with us, the check would be made out to LPL Financial for the benefit of George's IRA.
That's a really important distinction. So if you do get that check, don't automatically panic and say, oh my God, I've done something wrong. Why am I getting a check when I've executed a direct transfer? This is all part of the plan.
It can be part of the process, and all that means is that check can only be deposited in one place, the IRA account that has that designation on it. So even if somebody grabbed the check out of the mail, they couldn't deposit it. George can't take that check and deposit it into his personal bank account. It can only go into the IRA account. So it gives you protection when things are being mailed, but also it still indicates to the IRS that that was a direct transfer, even though, most people think of it as everything can be done electronically now. Unfortunately, some plans still don't allow for that.
And we've had some clients that actually will dog walk the check into the office, and who could blame them? Because in some cases these checks are quite sizable.
Absolutely.
I mean, if there was a check on in my possession for $1.something million, I would for certain want to walk it right into the offices and hand it to someone rather than put that in the mail.
Certainly.
Well, and I love that because. The folks are looking at it. They look at us, and it's like, oh my God, my life's work is like sitting here in a check. It's like, can I get a copy? No, we don't give you copies.
Of course, you can have a copy of your. Well, you probably want to frame it.
Well, exactly, but we don't frame those. We overnight those to the custodian, and it works out very well. But
yes,
again, it isn't unusual that this would happen. And again, because we are considered fiduciaries. In regard to your money, we do have to explain to you what these options are before you make these transfers, because certainly there are advantages and disadvantages of doing so. Number one is that, especially is if you take a lump sum distribution and you go through the withholding and you don't put the money back in, well, as Rob said, you could be looking at a very large tax bill plus 20% of it's already gone. If you want to get that money back in, you've got to replace that 20%. Nobody really wants to do that. The direct transfers are always the smartest thing to do if you're going to move your money from a company-sponsored retirement plan account to an individual account. Because we know that, I'm going to coin a phrase that my daughter uses, is that, company-sponsored plans are accumulation vehicles. IRA accounts are distribution vehicles. So you can't really make monthly withdrawals from your 401k. It's just not set up to do that. So if you do make the decision, you do need the money, you do want the money, you do want to use an advisor, well, then guess what? Those are really some very important reasons and things to consider about moving the money. Alternatively, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, maybe you don't move the money. That's okay. Again, that's your decision.
Also, George is over 59 and a half, so this wouldn't pertain to him. But if you happen to retire and you're under 59 and a half, it might make sense for you to hold that money inside of your 401k because, or at least a portion of that money inside of your 401k, because 401ks have a little bit more liberal of distribution options if you're under 59 and a half, but over the age of 55, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, if you're under 59 and a half, the rule of 55 will allow you to access money from a 401k if you're separated from that plan sponsor. So if you have some 401k money and you're not currently in service to that plan, you can access that money prior to 59 and a half without paying that penalty.
Right, but over 55. So you got that 4.5-year window that give you a little bit more liquidity than what an IRA will offer if you're over 59, if you're under 59 and a half. There are still options for getting money out of your IRA, avoiding the penalty if you're under 59 and a half. However, it's also important to point out some reasons why some people decide to leave, or why we recommend, even in working with clients, to leave some money in their 401ks.
So George has decided, and wisely I would certainly say, that he would like to retain us as his coaches and financial advisors, and we would be assisting him in doing this direct transfer from his 401k into his newly created custodial IRA. The process is pretty simple. Generally what happens is that we get on the telephone, do a conference call with one of our staff and our client to the 401k plan administrator to complete the direct transfer. Generally what's happening is that we need to have the name of the new custodian for the old custodian, an account number, which is fine. And then generally what happens is there's also a discussion about the money that's in there. Is it all pre-tax money? Is there any after-tax money? Is there any Roth money? Because we know that that's really the moment of truth where the assets haven't been commingled, and we certainly aren't going to commingle them going forward. The pre-tax money, your contributions, employer contributions, and interest on that money, they're all going to stay in a IRA account. Any interest that was earned on after-tax money, guess what? Those earnings that weren't taxed, they also end up going into the pre-tax account. With that after-tax money, you have an opportunity to either receive a check, tax-free because it's return of your own capital, or direct that into a IRA account, a Roth IRA account, which is kind of cool. Or if it is a Roth account, well, we set up a Roth IRA and it can receive that money as well. So those are some things that certainly we're going to do. But there's also the other stuff.
Part of the reason that we like to be on the phone with our clients is, one, to provide the service of assisting in the direct transfer, but also ensuring that all of those funds end up in the correct types of accounts. And in many cases, we can see on your 401k statement as we're working with you what the breakdown is. But in some cases, especially for individuals that have been with the same employer for an extended period of time, you may have been making some after-tax contributions, and this will be your opportunity for the contribution portion to either come to you as cash. Maybe we're filling up an emergency bucket for you. Maybe you already have a trip planned and you need some extra cash. And so those funds could be directed to you without taxes, like you said, Dad, or they can be directed into a Roth account. Maybe you didn't have one in the past. This is your opportunity to fund one. So we like to make sure that all of the funds are moving in the appropriate places, and also that you're provided with all of the information. All of the 401k plans will really kind of go over exactly what we've discussed, what the taxation is for each option as well.
Right, and we know that you'll be receiving 1099 forms, R's, which are basically informational forms so the IRS knows and they've been informed that money has been transferred between accounts, et cetera, which is good. And then obviously at the same time, we've created George's game plan, which is determining when he's going to take Social Security, when is he going to elect pulling money from his retirement plans, and also, as we just went through the last half hour, helping him and assisting him in making the best health care choices for himself. And then also, obviously, assisting him at that particular time when he's ready to move into Medicare, which is kind of fun. So it's a process. It's complicated. There are some complications to it, but the nice part is that we've seen this movie a few thousand times. Happy to help you, and truthfully, it's fun. It's fun to help folks. It's also fun occasionally, as Rob was saying, is to see the look on the people's faces when they hand a big check over. That's always kind of fun. Is it safe? Are we okay? And that's all good. So that was one thing that we did want to discuss. One scenario we want to talk about. But we also have a second scenario we want to talk about Julie, right?
Absolutely. We just want to get to a couple of these texts. If they come in, we'll segue right back to Julie. And our next texter writes, I turned 65 in November and am on an individual Anthem plan currently and want to switch to Medicare. When should I meet with Frank to start the process? Thanks.
So we always recommend that you give us a call about 2 months before the month that you turn 65. But because our texter is turning 65 in November, which is right in the middle of open enrollment, my recommendation would be that you give us a call end of summer, so August timeframe. We can get you set up with an appointment for the very beginning of October. And the reason that I suggest the very beginning of October is Frank can help you in two ways. One, he can help you transition on to Medicare for November 1st, but also because it'll be October 1st at that point, he can talk to you about what November and December are going to look like, and then he can even reveal your plan benefits for January forward, meaning you don't have to have an appointment almost every other month. When you initially turn 65, you can kind of have two appointments at once. We can have the November-December appointment for your initial election, and you can even make the decision, maybe I'm staying on the same plan next year, so you don't have anything to do during open enrollment. Or if you want to make a switch, Frank will actually be able to prepare the application for you. You won't be able to sign it the same day, but he'll already have it prepared, and you'll know what November and December look like, and then you'll know what all of 2026 will look like for you as well.
Terrific.
And our next texter writes, what is the IRS form that the charity needs to send you at the end of the year if you make a qualified charitable distribution?
So all the charity would necessarily need to do is send you an acknowledgement of the gift, or if you haven't received the acknowledgement of your donation, then I would just call the custodian or your advisor who assisted you in making the distribution from your IRA, because they can produce a copy of the check for you. You'll put the check with the 1099, and if you're using an accountant or a tax preparer, they'll be able to see that you took X amount out of the IRA, but Y, based on the check, was a charitable donation, so they can subtract that from your taxable income total of those distributions that you made.
Yeah, and we're obviously talking about that and recommending that to clients, especially in regard to their RMD. So, I mean, it can be work, but it's not an issue.
Certainly not, and I think it's time to take our last break of the hour.
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these brief messages.
What's that sound?
Oh, that's just Jim, our screen repair guy.
It's a little-known fact that the window screen repairman hibernates during the winter months when broken screens are scarce. Then, as spring brings warmer weather, he awakens to once again begin his work.
Wow. Really?
No, not really. Only wild animals hibernate. Jim is just taking a nap because he doesn't have many screens to fix.
Oh.
Hi, this is Frank Blair from Schnarr's Hardware, here to tell you this is a great time of year to avoid the spring rush and drop off your screens to get them ready for warmer weather.
Oh, yeah?
Then you can open up those windows at the first sign of balmy breezes, instead of waiting like your neighbors will have to.
Oh, so the screens keep the bugs out while the balmy breezes come in.
Bring those screens into Schnarr's today and avoid the rush.
Really?
Schnarr's Hardware, where we don't charge for the popcorn or the advice. We're open 7 days a week, so call us at 314-993-0910, or for location, hours, or to shop online, go to schnarrs.com.
From 2 to 3 on the Big 550 for Animal Talk, where I talk about everything regarding dogs, cats, and other domestic animals. Topics include nutrition, training, medical checkups, special guests show up now and then, and of course, I'll answer your questions. So join me every Sunday afternoon from 2 to 3 for Animal Talk on the Big 550 KTRS, the Animal Talk of St. Louis.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, we're back for our last couple minutes of the show. We've got about 12 minutes. I'm sorry, we've got about 8 minutes left on the show. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the Chatty text line.
And the text line is momentarily quiet, so we can get right back into Julie. And Julie, much like George, is 64, and she has recently changed employers and wants to continue to work until her normal retirement age at 67. She has amassed $575,000 in her former employer's 403B plan, and we have prepared her retirement game plan. So what are her options? Well, much like George, she can leave the money in her former employer's plan because she has more than $5,000. She can execute a direct transfer to a self-directed IRA. She could do a direct transfer from her employer's plan to her new retirement plan. She'll need to have the statement and the transfer form from her new employer's custodian and make sure that her employer's custodian allows for such transfers.
Absolutely, and they've actually made this process quite a bit easier. They don't require transfer forms for your 401k, so you'll call your current employer, find out if they will accept transfers from former 401k or 403b plans, and then you can execute that directly with the individual you're talking to, or many times through the online portal, and your current employer will request the funds from your former 401k. Or 403B.
Yeah, and it isn't unusual for us to recommend that folks do a direct transfer to that new employer's 401k plan for a couple reasons. And maybe the most important one is fees. When folks transfer money to self-directed IRAs, typically they're in a situation where they're prepared to receive advice. And we think especially this is important at retirement. But before you're retired, at least in our practice, for those folks that want to work with us, we're going to encourage them to keep the money in the plan, save that 1% fee instead of paying us, and we're happy to help build that game plan for them, making sure that, and checking out their investments, giving them some advice. Or education, thank you. Education, we're supposed to call it that, on what they're doing. Then also at that point, help them synergize investments they might have outside of their plan with the ones that they have inside. But that's a really important option. I think there are some things that you certainly want to consider if you're going to be making a transfer between custodians. Number one certainly is, are the investment options of the new plan similar or better than the options that you have under the current plan? And, maybe you're looking at transferring from one mutual fund to another. Maybe both plans have the same one. Well, what are the expense ratios with those plans? Is one plan going to be less expensive for you to maintain and keep that money in versus another? That's kind of important.
And that's also,
I would also
Dad,
say
I was
the
going to
breadth
say
of
on
choices too.
I was going to say on the fees, it's definitely important to drill down because your current plan and your former plan could offer the similar investment options, but they could have different fees associated with those very similar investment options. So it's not just a matter of looking at what funds are available.
Absolutely, and your plan may also, or the new plan may also have what they call a wrap fee, which is an administrative fee on top of the fees that are charged by the individual fund managers in that plan. So really important to make sure that you're checking out the fees, keeping money in its, what we like to think is its lowest cost environment, because we know the fees are basically a hurdle that you've got to jump over before you make your returns, right?
Yes, and it's great to have both. George was a less unique situation that retiring, what are our options? But because Julie isn't quite ready to retire yet, she has that additional option of not, rolling it into the IRA, but also taking it with her to the new 401k plan. So knowing that you have a few more choices available to you if you're not quite at the end of your working career is important.
Absolutely. And with many of the people that we're visiting with, they may be 3, 4, 5 years out of retirement. And maybe they're making a job change like Julie is and taking a new career, maybe a new part-time career. And, again, real important because you don't always have to roll that money into an individual IRA. Maybe it makes more sense in some cases to transfer it to that new employer.
Absolutely, making sure that the fees are reasonable, that the options are robust, and that the transfer is executed properly and swiftly is why we're here.
That's a great point. And I would say the same transfer rules are important, especially if you're moving from one 401k to another, if you have Roth component there, if you have after-tax contributions that are inside of your former 401k's plan, you want to make sure that those stay separate as they transition to your new 401k, because at any point, if the funds are, like you said, Dad, commingled, then either it is your responsibility to parse that out over time or your accountants that you'll have to pay to parse that out as you make distributions, or it just all becomes taxable again.
Ouch.
Right. So keeping that's one of the first rules of doing the rollovers, making sure that we like account unless you've made the decision that you're paying the taxes. So you don't want to inadvertently do something that creates a tax situation. You only want to, knowingly have to pay your taxes.
And unfortunately, we have inherited situations where things were a little bit messy. And I know, honey, you were very involved in a client where saved them a lot of money because you were able to unravel it. But it was something that was done in reasonably quick order.
Well, and that's a great point, which is some things are reversible, some things are not. So our goal is that we don't have to correct anything. We're going to do it right on the first pass. That way we don't have to go back. But yes, we have helped some clients that inadvertently commingled pre-tax and after-tax assets, or just dumped all their pre-tax money into their after-tax money into a pre-tax account. Being able to kind of backtrack and be of assistance, sometimes it can be an easy fix. Other times it's going to take a little bit longer, but we don't want you to have to spend your retirement fighting with the IRS or proving anything. So that's why we like to we'll call it the white glove service from when you retire, which is helping you make the decision about how and if you're going to transition funds, and then helping you actually execute the game plan.
There is so much to consider when you're getting ready to retire, from how you're moving the accounts to what your game plan is going to look like. Haven't even touched on the Medicare options. The only way you lose is by not coming in for that coaching session.
That's right, and they're easy to do. They're fun. They're no cost at our office in Olivet. You can give us a call, 314-863-0008, or you can hop on our website, jblfinancial.com, hit the Contact Us button, and we'll get back to you, and we'll see you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.